everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get Out of Rap. I'm really excited about this one. It's been very hard to keep this project that we've been doing under wraps, but I'm really pleased to welcome Ed Creasey, Ed, industry legend. I think probably one of the most well-known people in our industry. I've been lucky enough to listen to Ed talk at a number of events. Ed Creasey, you're VP of Solution Engineering at Calabrio. Welcome.
Thank you. You've made my day calling me an industry legend. I was called a veteran the other day, which I think was a bit passive aggressive, saying I was old. But I'm going to take legend. Thank you.
I got called a veteran player at football last night, and I had the same kind of, is this a compliment?
I don't think it is.
No. Ed, thank you so much for being here. And as I said, I'm sure hundreds of our listeners, maybe even thousands, have heard you speak. And but this isn't where, you didn't go straight into being VP. You have had a storied career in our industry. Where did it all start?
Yeah. It started with a temp job, and yes, I know most of your listeners weren't born, but in 1992, I was temping in my holidays at uni, and got this slip to say customer service department. I was like, I don't know what the hell that is. And I turned up at this contact centre, as we'd call it, in Abingdon in Oxfordshire, where I'm from, and it was just chaos. It was pre-technology, really. So there were telephones on desk, and there were these things called hunt groups, and phones were ringing around in circles. No one was picking them up. It was chaotic, but I loved the teamwork. I remember all the characters I was on that first team of 6 with. And I found I was good at solving customer problems, and there were plenty of them back then. And so I went from agents. I went into I was a complaints manager for a couple of years, which was brutal, but you learned everything about what goes wrong for customers. And then I became contact center manager, and I even went into product development, which was really interesting because obviously product development normally causes all the problems in the contact center. So and the lesson I got from all of that was nothing beats frontline experience, and I still use it today in my career.
Mm. And isn't that strange? We've had very, very similar backgrounds, and I'm sat right now in Didcot, so just
No
down the
way.
road. Yeah,
Small
from
world.
Abingdon. It is a small world. The beauty of our industry, as well as that lesson. In the time you've been in our industry, you must have some others that come to mind.
Yeah, I think I was lucky. I went into to be a QA consultant. I had this hilarious email address. I was Ed at Empathy, because we used to measure empathy, which was used in mystery shopping. Some people remember that. And then eventually, as call recording came in, we started taking like recorded calls. And the lesson I learned from that was how important it is to hold a mirror up to your customer experience. That was, I think that's still hugely relevant. But how many transferable skills we build in this industry. So effectively, I was like a QA team. That's what I did for 7 years. And I don't think we should ever underestimate how many skills you have when you have to analyze and evaluate contacts. It's a tough thing to do. So that was a great experience. And then last 20 years ish, I've been working in software, and I'm really, the big lesson of that, and I've done that globally, is yes, AI is cool and automation is great, but it isn't about it. It's not about the AI. It's about the problem. It's about, can you define your problem, and what do you want the IT to do? And most importantly, what are you going to do with it when you get it? So, yeah, it's been fun, and I hope there's more to come.
Yes, yeah, me too. Now, let's get on to the project that we've been working on. What is it?
It's a continuation of a sort of 4 or 5 years of research that we've done at Calabrio. So, and it's been a rich narrative. And if you think of the last 4 or 5 years, the abnormal seems normal now, right?
Yeah.
We've been looking at how contact centers changes and what new things are emerging. We started 2020, what everyone talked about was the pandemic, and then in 21 we researched agents and managers, which was all about that great resignation we used to talk about. 2022 we did managers and consumers, try to compare the view from inside to outside. Last year we were looking at managers globally, how AI was affecting things, and really this year we wanted to hear the voice of the agent. do we really understand what's going on with them? So that's what we've done.
And it's been, I have to say, it's been absolutely fascinating to work with you guys and to go out there and engage with agents. You know, both me and you are previous agents. I think I love some of those lessons. That front end experience never leaves you. It never leaves you. And I certainly can't remember in the few years that I was an agent and then team leader being asked to engage in a survey that's so comprehensive. And it's been brilliant to see, you know, the huge amount of responses that we've had. What are some of the like basic details? You know, what's the kind of respondent level and that kind of thing?
Yeah, let me give you some of the nuts and bolts. I think everyone likes to know what they're comparing the data to. So we had 520 agents. It was across Europe. 28% had less than 2 years tenure. So we had a good mix, I think, of people who were, you know, who were new, but we also had some good experience in there. 81%, I'm going to say Gen Z because I'm 52 and I can't say Gen Z, but just to reassure you, I do say JZ just to be consistent. Or millennials. So, you know, that shows what the workplace looks like. And interesting, 45% were right on the average salary that we see, which is 22 to 26K. So hopefully that will give your listeners a feel that this is a pretty typical cohort of contact center agents.
I know, I completely agree. You know, when you mentioned at the start there that first team, and I found that reassuring that when you look at the numbers, you can imagine the makeup of
Yeah,
what people listening right now on their way to their contact center will recognize these numbers in terms of what their own teams
yeah,
look like. You know, predominantly young, but a great blend of different ages and experiences and all that that brings.
yeah. In fact, what I love about the research before we get into it is it's got a bit of a wake up call.
Mm,
It's telling team leaders, and I know that's going to be a lot of your listeners, but you know, the piece, you know, some of the managers are going to make decisions. Some of the people remote from the contact center. You know, what's really important to agents right now, and some of it's not the new cool stuff that vendors like me like to talk about. Some is like, please remember us. Please remember our mental health. Please remember our work-life balance. Please remember every IT product you've ever put on my desktop isn't always helpful to me. And I was lucky when I was an agent, PCs didn't exist. We, we had dumb terminals. I had 3 screens to deal with. But we know, you know, an agent's desktop is not fun. So yeah, that's what I love about it. It quite often the frontline view comes last. This is saying
mm,
we're going to put it first, which I love.
mm. So, what were the 530 agents telling us? What's jumped out to you straight away?
Okay, so let's get into it. I did so just to give everyone an idea of what we asked. We had 32 questions. So it was very thorough, and that went right across from, you know, the demographics, which we've talked about, job satisfaction. We went deep on work schedules, work environment, workload, systems and tools, training, management, career, mental health. I mean, we covered a lot of things, and the headline is my favorite part of the whole thing is there's a shift in perception. All right, I'm a dinosaur, so it was ancient history when you know, you and I were chatting off air about some of the sadistic training and development we've had, where we're
Yeah.
being locked in a room or forced to sit in the corner facing the wall. That happened to me. But there's a shift in perception that there is more value put on agent contribution and creating an environment that agents can thrive in. And the top headline is 70% would recommend the job to a friend. And I'm not, certainly not in my day with that being the stat. So I think that's great. That people are feeling proud, you know, and they're feeling satisfied with their job overall. So, you know, 66% of agents feeling satisfied, 64% of agents feeling proud to work in the contact center. These are great stats, I think.
And that jumps out straight away. I think a lot of what we do, a lot certainly what I've tried to do with the podcast, what a lot of what you talk about is trying to change the perception of our industry. And prior to doing this research, I think if you'd have said, if we asked over 500 agents whether they were proud to work in the industry, there is no way that I would have thought it would be as high as 64%. I think that is so positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the job satisfaction question, what I loved, not just the 66 feeling satisfied, it was the 13% feeling not satisfied. Now, there was a set that were feeling neutral.
Mm,
And I think that's a vulnerable state. I think, you
mm,
know, if I'm a contact center leader or a team manager, that neutral state can be pushed into the wrong area. So we've got
mm,
to keep doing the right things. And the great things about the report is it's given us some tips of maybe some blind spots, some things that we thought were the right things to do, or things that are coming from outside the contact center onto us. We know that's a big part of the world that we have to live in, that we should be aware of.
Now that's a standout headline. Where do we go next? Because we don't want to be blinded and go and think,
Yeah,
hey, everything's great.
completely. And I think career and salary was an interesting section because I think some of us were surprised that the top reasons motivating agents to choose the career path, and the top one was steady income at 70%. It was distinctive, and the next closest one was team environment at 48%. So I think that tells us something about the nature of the world, possibly the gig economy.
Yeah.
But this sort of job, it gives a steady income rather than the old trope that was really, you went into a contact center because you couldn't find another job. And I think that's changed. But team environment is clearly something that's interesting from the hybrid world. I think that's
Mm.
definitely worth exploring more as we talk later about team development. Other ones were job security and flexible working hours were the top ones. There's probably a bit more to be learned from the opportunities, though, as ever. And that's really around personal fulfillment, if I wanted to sum it up. So the lower choices, so I'll give you an example. Personal fulfillment was chosen 22% of the time as reasons motivating agents for their career path. Variety in daily tasks was 19%, company benefits 16%. And I think all of those say, okay, those are opportunities to get those higher up. So think about, your recruitment approach and the variety of career pathing you give an agent when they come into the contact center.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's kind of like the steady income is a thing that gets them to the door, but there's so much more. All of the other things that you've just listed are all of the things that have kept us in this industry for so long, and then why we're so evangelical about it.
Yeah,
You're dead right in it. It's telling us we have to front end the messaging. Say, yeah, steady income and the gig economy thing you mentioned is spot on. But we have to kind of front end this messaging and say, yeah, there's a steady income, no doubt about that. You'll be part of a great team, but guess what? There's all of these other things as well. And that starts before they've even entered the industry.
yeah. The variety is interesting. I think obviously some of that is out of control of an organization. If they're a mono-channel organization, which is unusual now, that can happen if you're stuck in one department. But I often think normally when I'm queuing in a supermarket, actually, and if there's a particularly miserable looking server there, and I think the way I was when I was an agent, I thought every customer is different.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to see this as a mundane job. I'm going to see every customer as a unique opportunity to make a difference to their day. And I think people need to replicate that within agents' career paths. And certainly when we move to career problems, there is more of an issue. So when we asked about agents if they had a long-term view of their career, half of them didn't, and 62% of them didn't have a plan. So and the opportunity around long term was really about people who were unsure.
Mm,
So that was the strongest trend was people unsure. And again, that's that kind of vulnerability. You've got an
mm,
opportunity
mm.
for agents to create and see that they got a long term career in your organization.
I think that's such a fascinating point as well, because what we're saying is big majority are proud, would recommend it to their friends, they're in and they're committed, yet that same percentage the other way don't have career progression plans, or they're unsure whether they have one. The onus then sits on both the culture within the contact center, senior leadership, all the way down to their team leaders, to start those conversations, to map out and say, what is it you want to do? How can we keep you here?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, another stat: 43% weren't aware of career pathways. And that if you think of our careers, and I think of many people I work with, the career pathway was often like they went into the planning team. They were an agent, they went into the planning team, they discovered a love of spreadsheets, and the next thing they know, they're working for someone like Calabrio. Or like I did, I went into QM.
Yeah.
Effectively. I went there, and I think those two roles are so underappreciated, particularly, and obviously I'm talking personally here. I think QM is often
Yeah.
neglected. That person who can really understand the conversation, empathize with what that agent was facing, but really the experience the customer got, and then do a great coaching session. That's a superpower, in my opinion. But I don't know how often contact centers sort of see that move as that. Sometimes it's a bit of a sideways move. I can't cope with the customers, I'm going to go off into the QA team. I think it should be seen more positively.
Well, all of those should, and then there's a plethora of different avenues that
Yeah.
people can take, and you can't start talking about that early enough, can you?
No, no, and I think contact centers need to be deliberate about this. We're well into the new demographics of Gen Z, to repeat my pronunciation. And what we know from that cohort, and it is a huge generalization, that not every person born in my era are exactly the same, but there certainly is variety in career was suddenly more important, that we saw in all the stats. And I think the great opportunity you have in a contact center is it isn't a factory. It's not like the factory farming. There's loads of different roles you can explore. So that was definitely an area. The other stat in this sort of career segment was about the question we asked said, has your role become more difficult? And it wasn't a huge majority, but I would say this is an area of concern, which is 31% said, yeah, my role's changed and it's become more difficult. Now, we all predicted this, when self-service came along and everyone said all the easy calls are going to go into digital channels, and we're going to be stuck with all the difficult contacts and the difficult chats and the difficult emails. And that's a sort of, I think that was bound to happen. And that's a sign that, roles could be getting more difficult. So contact centers need to be sensitive to that.
Yeah, because that has implications for an area that we'll come to as well, around kind of well-being. And this is it's an increased cognitive load
Yeah.
for the agents, as well as the role becoming more challenging. Was there anything else in this section that stood out for you?
Not really. Being a WFM company, we got quite interested in the sort of forecasting scheduling side of it, and that's definitely an area where there's a strong link. I think,
Oh, huge.
and we saw some really good stuff. Like 77% of agents said they could take a break after a contact. That's
Great.
72% saying usually their PTO attempts were accepted, and 67% felt management cared about their work-life balance. And again, I think, particularly the last one, managers may say, well, what about the 33? I said, I still think you should be proud of that stat. So those were all some real positives around scheduling. There are some rooms to improve. So 46% of agents feeling they had little or no control of their schedules. Now, as an organization in Calabria really focus on self-scheduling, I think that's a big opportunity. And what's great for all your users out there is they've probably got the technology to do this. They should just look at their managers and at their planning team and goes, how can we still, deliver customers a great experience, but give people a bit more freedom?
You must have seen with your clients what happens when you do utilize that. What are the benefits?
It has to come with control. That's the one thing I often when you're talking to clients, particularly in mixed room, yeah, you have to kind of remember, I'm talking to the planners over here, who want to have control. I'm talking to the contact center director who has been told by his boss or her boss to say, you have to keep service levels under control. But we're also thinking about the agents. So yeah, what we've seen is organizations who, wanted to maintain service level, but give agents flexibility. They take advantage of three things, right? You allow agents up front to put in your preferences, pre-scheduling. You allow the planners to say to do the scheduling and give, but give then build in freedom where agents can go in and not just move schedules around, not just move breaks, but actually we're putting in features like in the roadmap where an agent can add in personal development and training and projects. And as long as the service level rules say, we've got enough staff to cover during that period, that's really going to help some of the future stats I'm going to share with you about agents wanting to have better coaching and training.
It's a key area, isn't it? There, I think, and by all means, correct me if I'm wrong here. You've got great knowledge of this research, but there was a free text section where agents were able to put in anything they wanted. By far, the most comments that shows the importance of scheduling. They were all about scheduling, near enough, weren't they?
Yeah, completely. Because that's what I guess. So we care about our work-life balance. We know we need to. I remember when our occupancy hit, because I remember the first ACD being brought in, and I remember starting to see occupancy, and I remember the feeling when occupancy was heading. I don't know if it was 95%. I don't know if that's even possible. I remember it being really, really, really high. It was call after call after call. It's brutal. So I think it's where it starts. If you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, in a contact center, obviously you need a building, you need some technology, you need some agents, but you need to have fair schedules. I think that's down there as the basics. Another stat I thought kind of linked to this was, well, we asked agents, do you feel ready to deal with busy periods? And 60% were confident. I mean, yeah, we do, but 40% felt unsure, unprepared. And I think that's a big chunk. If you looked at the team, looked at your teams, and you've got 10 teams and 4 of them aren't ready for when it gets busy, that's concern. And that came out in the qualitative comments. There was obviously lots of, I want more freedom. I don't want to work weekends. I want four on, 4 off, lots of stuff like that. But there was also like, I'm concerned about, are we ready? And we all know if there's other teams who aren't handling demand and it's affecting us, that's not a good place to be. You want everyone to be able to handle the demand.
It's not a good place to be for the agents, nor is it a good place for customers. Like you say, 40% is significant. If you think about the impact that then has on the customers as well, their number one frustration is getting through to someone. And there you go. That's how it happens.
It bleeds everywhere. I mean, my specialist subject is kind of analyzing customer experience, and you feel it as a customer. We're all customers, right? You feel it when that agent's under pressure to get you off the chat or get you off the call. You feel it when there's silos. When you're being moved around. I think we're either the best or the worst customers on the planet. Contact center people. We know when we're being, spun a line. We know when we're being pushed to another department, and that's a bad experience for the agent. It's bad for the customers. Repeat contacts, all the things with extended handle time, all the things that make contact center experience poor for everyone. A good example of that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
Just a good example of that is sort of the coaching area of the data. And the role of how do organizations prepare for coaching, do more coaching, and understand the barriers that face agents. So we had some good stats. 72% of agents agreed that when they get training, it's valuable, which is great. Because we know that's the key to a successful agent. You define your customer experience, you train your agents how to deliver that customer experience, and then you go on and do all the measures that we know and love. But when we asked about how often it is, 37% were monthly, were receiving coaching and training on a monthly, 38% having it weekly or bi-weekly. So with the tech that's available out there, I think there's opportunities to feed agents more regular coaching and training. As a former team manager, I know, and I've witnessed it, leave your evaluations to the end of the month and they back up and you end up with a big queue and you suddenly rush through and you send them out and you seat drop them. That's still happening, I think.
It's a huge opportunity. I was you go from being disappointed to then thinking, okay, well, actually, this is still good because if we could increase that frequency, and I think the frequency is a reflection of the importance that coaching is held within the center. If you say, you know what, coaching is fundamental, once a month isn't enough because as the research showed, when it happens, people that receive the coaching say, you know what, this is valuable, this has really helped me.
Yeah.
How do we prioritize that so that we can increase the frequency? Because I don't think once a month is enough.
Yeah, and I think that's where technology does help.
Yeah.
If you can have tools where planners are able to easily plan training sessions across the contact center, knowing that with some rules to make sure it doesn't affect service level, that
Yeah.
really helps. And I think the key, though, to tick both the more training and more empowerment is allowing agents to plan it themselves. We also looked at one-to-ones, and that was interesting. 28% saying they're having a one-to-one weekly, 49% having a monthly, 9% saying never, which was a bit scary considering that's nearly 50 agents. But I know as a leader that the importance of that, and I'm and please feel free to call in any of my team members, but I pretty much stick to weekly. Because I think you need that regular touch point, particularly coming back to your point earlier about the hybrid environment. My team go from California to Melbourne, Australia. So everything's hybrid, everything's remote. So that touch point becomes more and more important.
It's linked to two stats that you've called out from earlier. This kind of the team environment being a reason why people want to be in the contact center, and your one-to-one is a way to strengthen that. And then um, the other one, of course, is that career pathway. You know those one-to-ones are where you start building that.
Completely. Yeah, and you have that opportunity to create the narrative week on week, how that person's doing, the challenge they're having. I use a technique with my teams. We talk about the calendar. We talk about what are the big rocks that are facing them, three things, and what are the red flags. And that allows we kind of box it around time, and it allows people to get through and focus on the key things. I think with coaching particularly to see beyond the monthly sheep dip philosophy is key. The best ones I've ever seen are when people take 90-day coaching plans and they start with a theme and they repeat that theme over the period. So they're actually in their coaching model seeing it as a longer term thing rather than I'm getting a monthly drop of my stats, of my evaluation form, and I'm coached on that form, and there's really no reference to it next time. I think that the former works a lot better than the latter.
Yeah, 100%.
It links a bit to a couple of glass stats on sort of coaching QM. 58% of agents said they weren't engaged in a quality management process, which shocked me a little bit. Could be labeling there a bit because they might say, "Oh yeah, I get coaching, but I what's quality management?" But let's say there's even some inaccuracy there. That was a concern to see that people weren't doing that. And the next big stat we'll talk about in a second about AI could be linked to that. The other one was 38% of agents said they never have any team bonding activities, and I wonder how much that's linked to the hybrid world, or have we just got out of the habit? I don't know.
Yeah, that was a surprise, certainly from my own personal experience and just being within the industry. It's those types of events that stay with you and strengthen those those bonds. Maybe you're right. It points to the challenge that people face now around how do you do that if some of your team or all of your team are working from home. What, but it definitely shows we need to do more. We need to do more in that area to really think about how we are how we are engaging our teams over and above just all working together. What else can we
Yeah.
do from a social point of view?
Yeah, and one of the few benefits we've got of the sort of connected technologies we have, including social media and digital platforms, is the ability to create communities virtually.
Yeah.
So we couldn't have any more tools available to us, but I think often it's how we use them, how authentic they are as well, and but I think that's definitely something for your listeners to be aware of. So should we talk about the 900-pound gorilla in the room?
Yes, go for it.
So this is my favorite stat, and I will remind everyone I sell AI. So the trend came. We asked agents how useful is AI in their everyday life, and we asked them to rate it on a scale of 1 to 100. 1 being not useful at all, and 100 being very useful. Now, 73% scored under 50, 47% scored under 20. So that's a bit of a concern. I'm not surprised as a consumer of navigating my way through voice IVRs and voice bots, particularly, and chat bots. We're all slightly enjoying, with a sense of Schadenfreude, all the different chatbot disasters that are happening out there. We also asked how useful the tools are and AI. So I think it's important to see this is not just AI, but this could be any automation you get stuck on your desktop to use to help in specifically helping manage customer inquiries. And again, same scale, not useful at all to very useful. 64% scored under 50, 39% under 20. So similar trends. So I'm not surprised. Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
I think it's a real interesting one because I regularly get a feed of anything related to contact centers, so news. It's a rising percentage of that info, or looking on LinkedIn, that is AI. And it's great. I think it's a real positive for our industry that we're at the forefront of its application. But what these stats have really showed is it, it's it's not being applied where we really need it to be applied. Because we know, don't we, that it was just over 30% was saying my job's becoming more difficult. And I imagine if we were to do this survey again next year, that's going to increase.
Yeah.
Where can we use this fantastic technology? You mentioned scheduling and self-scheduling, and we can see in the research how important that is across the board. It didn't surprise me, and like you, I thought it points to a great opportunity to say, let's engage with agents and find out what would be useful, what would make them say, or for the ones that did say it, yeah, it's really useful. What is it?
Yeah.
What is useful?
I totally agree. I think it's the definition between AI and just tech is critical. And I think around planning and scheduling, I think a lot of it that we're going to deliver is, some of it's powered by AI. We have a virtual assistant. You can get overtime and voluntary time off just by chatting to a chat bot. But some
Nice.
of it's just going to be good alerts. So
Mm,
we're going to make our alerts better. So if you get your holiday request approved, it's going to be easier to see it. If you get out of schedule, it's easier to know that. If a team manager has someone calling sick, they know it. And if planners, all the stuff you'd expect, that's basic AI. And around, I think we're going to see some exciting things around quality. So I'm doing some tests at the moment using generative AI. So this latest version we're all having fun with, seeing, if anyone uses Amazon or TripAdvisor, you see the summary of all the reviews. Definitely contacts are being summarized by most applications. that's really, really interesting for QA. So if you've got any team leaders out there who do regular evaluations, I'm sure you have, and find it a bit mundane, to have a summary of, let's say it was one of the longer contacts, and you've got a 150-word summary you can read in 20 seconds generated by AI. That's a good pragmatic use.
Mm.
And you can automate QA forms with some really good, accurate commentary on it. But, and here's the rub, right? You've got to think about, what's the problem I'm trying to solve here first. So I'll give you an example. I've got a clinical customer in the UK who has very, very important wrap time to work on. And these are nurses who have some very serious clinical conversations, and they have to write them up, and it takes like nearly an hour. So AI is proving a very interesting use case for them there, because they can summarize that in seconds. But we really thought, the way we did a proof of concept to really prove that would work for them. It's also doing things like you can use dashboards against keywords where certain service users are talking about being at risk, and we can automatically flag those keywords and understand agents who are taking a lot of contacts about where customers are very distressed, and so clinical managers can see that. So I think those good use cases, and the two things we're finding is, you've got to get the use case right with AI, and you've got to monitor your AI. That's the other thing. Make sure you're seeing what your chat and voice bots are doing to your customer experience.
Some of the things you've just shared there are so fascinating, starting with the work that you're doing, because I can't help but look at that as someone that, both being a team leader and a contact center manager, you're working hand in glove with your planning team. And all of those things you mentioned that can be picked up by AI, all I was thinking of, I'd have loved to have worked in that environment, because it would have saved me so much time that I could be spending with my team.
Yeah.
And I could be spending time coaching them, rather than, has holiday been approved, who's off sick, all of those types of things. I think that's great. And then, what a great case study that is, because it's there's some emotion behind that. There's
Oh,
some
perfect.
real, this is not people buying shoes, this is health.
Yeah, yeah. It's certainly it's been the most important project I've ever worked on,
Mm.
because you're making a difference. It's a matter of life and death. So yeah. And when you look at the comments, we had the penultimate question was, just give us some ideas on scheduling and resourcing. The themes they're not necessarily the latest and greatest AI. They're just really pragmatic use of technology. So it's like, the themes were annual leave management, making it more transparent, better wait lists, fewer restrictions, fairer distribution. It was shift patterns and work-life balance. It was, people wanting 4-day weeks. They want more flexibility. More break management. It was more control over break timings. Yes, systems and technology did come up. They want to have reduced multiple tabs, multiple systems, better knowledge management. Scheduling definitely came up. Better communication about scheduling, better coordination, and finally, special circumstances was about accommodation for compassionate leave and emergencies, mental health stuff. All of these things we would have been talking about 15 years ago. We're just in a better position to deal with them now. But they're not screaming saying, can you put a generative AI chatbot on my desktop, please, to answer all the questions for me in real time when I'm just trying to, deal with a customer.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this research, isn't it? This is the real stuff.
Yeah. It's the real people doing the job, not people like me hypothesizing about the good old days. And that's why we love this.
And then from AI, the systems that people are using, where's the research go from there?
I mean, it's validated what I thought, which agents aren't thinking about the upside of it too much. So what I'm doing at the moment with a very large US customer is we're rolling out automated QM using generative AI. And the best way to learn is to learn in a controlled way, which is what this client is doing. Taking one department, using AI in it, learning lessons. And we're using some cool stuff there. We're using auto QM. We've got contacts being summarized. We've got a new BI tool, which is much easier for people to use. But that's my advice of where AI goes for you guys. Obviously, we've got a little bit of thinking about how agents feel about AI, but for you guys, I would always test it. Make sure you have a really strong hypothesis of why you want it, and make sure you test it in a very normal environment. So I always like to recommend when we rolled these things out, I said, don't give me the best team out there. Certainly don't give me the worst team, because you want give me a typical team. You talked about this earlier, right? A team with some superstars, but a team with some plodders and some average people and with some difficult people. The one key thing I would say is when you try and roll out tech is get a motivated team manager. That does make a big difference. Same in quality, same in planning. If someone doesn't want to make tech succeed, you can definitely achieve that. So that would be my advice for you guys about the way to look at tech.
It's brilliant. And is there anything else in the? I mean, there's so much. How can people get hold of this?
That's a good question. It can be downloaded from our website, and I'm assuming we're going to make it available for you to be downloaded in the different channels you distribute the podcast.
Yes, great. I mean, if you were to summarize, I mean, you've gone through some of the key takeaways from each section. Does this, when you've gone through the research, how did it make you feel overall?
I love it. I love it because a lot of research and when I read research, and I have to kind of take research in and present it back to the market, I spend a lot of time trying to work out what the hell it means, or frankly disagreeing with most of it. So the thing I love about this research is I've learned something. It all makes sense, and I agree with all the conclusions that agents have made. So that's my biggest takeaway. I need more time with it, but my sense is around scheduling, people need to embrace what they can do with a great WFM tool. I think there's real opportunities there, particularly around giving agents empowerment to manage their own schedules without affecting service levels. I think that's available today. Around coaching, I think you made the point perfectly, actually. AI and automation, what you want is to give your team managers more time to do the real coaching. And that connects together two trends here, which is agents appreciating training, but probably wanting a bit more. And not really appreciating automation tools. So I think that, and there's a few other little ones which are a bit controversial, but I think are important. Systems, right? Systems being slow, multiple systems. One of the biggest reasons is that the people who make the decisions on systems have never been an agent, or they don't have visibility of the impact of their tools. So I was doing some analysis for a customer in Australia on hold, which is a great thing to analyze, because why are agents putting people on hold? That's normally a process going wrong, a knowledge process going wrong, a need for help. It can be just a cry for help. And I was looking at this one contact, and this was an agent who put customers on hold in 90% of contacts. And I was like, whoa, literally the highest agent. And I was analyzing it, and during the hold, what we're able to do in our product is where there's hold, we have a screen recording and we have desktop analytics. So the screen recording is a video. It was 6 minutes of hold, which is a bit dull. But the desktop analytics told me every single application that agent was using. And I was looking at them, and one little tooltip comes out and it said sticky notes, the little notepads, which most agents use, right?
Yeah.
And so I clicked on it and went, why were sticky notes being used? Well, they're being used because the system had frozen. So what the agent was doing was logging into a screen, which took about 30 seconds. Whilst they were in that screen, they were frantically writing down the information that were in that screen. because they knew they couldn't go back to that screen because it would take another 30 seconds. So we were literally dumping the information from the CRM onto a sticky note to allow them to do their job. And you could hear them go. The agent was frustrated. It was terrible efficiency. They went back off hold. The customer put the phone down. So the customer's annoyed as well. And they're copying data out of the customer's system. Compliance. I mean, literally tick
Yeah.
every box. But to do that, you need something like screen recording and desktop analytics, which some people think is a policing tool. But if I was a hybrid agent on a crappy desktop that was running slow, I'd want people to know the impact that had on me.
And through that, you're able to solve the problem. I think that, and again, that comes right back to one of your early lessons. I have absolutely loved not just this podcast, but working with you guys on this research. For me, that the pride in our industry, I think, is amazing. I think, a large proportion of the listeners of this show are senior leaders, and I I think what this research shows, amongst hundreds of takeaways, is we are being given a huge opportunity with future leaders, future key stars in WFM, QM, training, HR, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
We've been told by agents they're proud to work in the industry. They would recommend it to friends, but there's some work we've got to do to keep them across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. What an exciting opportunity.
Yeah.
Because all the tools are out there.
Yeah. Ed, I've loved doing this with you. Thank you so much. We definitely have to do another one, I think, on the research, but also to maybe talk about our shared pasts of how things were different.
We could do it back in the day when I were a lad. That would be kind of, I think it might be just funny for some of your listeners who are not, didn't get back to the 90s to hear some of those stories. I'd love to do that. It would be cheaper than therapy. So yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Ed Creasey, thank you so much. And for everyone listening, um, we will share details of how you can get this groundbreaking research. It's fascinating, it's valuable. I've never seen anything like this, and Calabrio have been awesome on this, and we will share how you can obtain all of it. But Ed, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.